Welcome back to Real Estate 101. Today we're going to continue our discussion on family law and talk a little bit about grandparents' rights. And I'm pleased to be joined by Rosemary Gallo of Deborah Smith Frank. Rosemary, welcome to the show.
Thank you for having me.
All right, Rosemary. So I want to start today's show and talk about grandparents' rights. Do they have any?
Yes, grandparents do have rights. In the law was recently changed, actually just at the end of last year, and it provides a provision where now judges have to specifically consider grandparents when it comes to both custody and access of their grandchildren.
Okay, so how did the law change specifically to help grandparents?
So prior to the change, basically the law didn't specifically state that a judge had to consider grandparents. The law basically related to parents and then other individuals that had a close connection with the child. Now the law is specific that grandparents should be considered. So it's an acknowledgement that a grandparent is just not another person. They're just not another relative. They have a very special and important role in a child's life.
Okay, so how is this important when it comes to family law?
It's important when it comes to family law because in Ontario, it's estimated that there's approximately 75,000 grandparents that are going without seeing their grandchildren. And often this is the product of families that are separating and going through transition. And so sometimes when families are breaking apart, grandparents get lost in the mix. It can also be as a result of grandparents that have become estranged from their children. Just because a grandparent is estranged from their child doesn't mean they should also be estranged from their grandchild.
All right. Now, obviously, something had to happen in order for all of this to come about.
Well, what's been happening is that there's been more and more grandparents that have been reaching out to, their MPPs and letting them know that this is what's going on and they're not able to see their grandparents. There's been many articles recently in the local newspapers throughout the province where you have grandparents that are telling their stories about what's going on in their lives and how they went from having a very significant role in their grandchildren's lives to not seeing them at all. And so that's what motivated the government to make the change. And the important part of the change is that now, when a judge looks at the facts of what's going on with a family, if a grandparent were to make an application, the judge needs to consider the grandparent specifically, and their role is given more importance than previously in law.
Okay, so how can or how does this law now help grandparents?
Well, what it means is that if a grandparent isn't exercising access with their grandchild, then they would be able to bring an application to the court. They could always do this, but before now, they weren't specifically mentioned in the law. And so now the grandparent is. And the other important part of this is that the law, when a law is considering what to do in these circumstances, what motivates a judge is the best interest of the child. And there's a number of factors that go into considering what a best interest of the child it means. And the law has also been changed to acknowledge that the love and connection with a grandparent should be specifically considered.
All right. So when do you most often see this happen?
You most often see this happen when parents are separating. When parents separate, life changes for kids and for the parents. So you'll have parents that the schedule changes, the transitions change. So where before the grandparents were really active, they were maybe picking up and dropping off the kids before school, available to babysit. After separation with the life change, they're not so much asked to be around anymore because of the hostility and tension. And the thing is, that's not necessarily what the children want. That's not necessarily what's in the children's best interest. What's in the children's best interest is that they maintain close bonds with all of their family members and especially their grandparents.
All right. So what should a grandparent do if they aren't seeing the children?
The first thing that a grandparent should always do is try and communicate with the parents of the child. That's always important. You don't want to rush to court before you can try to work it out yourselves, because It's always better for a child to have a family that's able to cooperate with one another. If that's not possible, then a grandparent should contact a lawyer, and a lawyer can explain their rights and what the steps are in the process in order to get access with their grandchildren and start seeing them more regularly.
All right, so let's talk about the steps. How does it work exactly?
Well, you'd have to make an application to the court. In your application, you'd basically want to explain your connection with the child, what your connection has always been, how you're closely bonded. The one thing that I think grandparents provide to children, especially children that are going through transition when their parents are separating, is a stabilizing force. Kids are resilient when they go through the turmoil of separation, but I really believe, and in my practice I've seen this, that when you have a grandparent that's able to show a child unconditional love and stand with them through this transition, it's extremely helpful to that child.
All right, so what are the circumstances that judges will look at when dealing with cases like this?
So a judge is basically going to look to what the best interests of the child are.
Right.
That means they're going to look at the connection, the bond that child has with the grandchild. They're going to look at the love. They're going to look at the guidance that grandparent can provide to the child when determining whether or not that grandparent should be ordered to have access with that child.
All right, so let's say somebody watching or listening is going through something like this. How can Deborah Smith Frank help?
Well, they should contact us. We would be able to talk with them to kind of get the facts and understand what's been going on. And based on that, we would be able to advise them of the best steps they should take in order to begin seeing their grandchildren again.
All right, Rosemary, for anybody watching and listening who may want to get in touch with you, how can they reach you?
They can reach me by phone or email. My email is rosemary.gallo@devrylaw.ca or by phone at 416-446-3319.
All right, Rosemary, great stuff. Thanks for coming on today's show.
Thanks.
So there you have it. If you're looking for more information on family law, get in touch with Rosemary Gallo of Deborah Smith Frank. Don't forget to subscribe to our YouTube channel, like, comment, and share our videos. I'm Joe. Thanks for watching, and we'll see you next time.